So The Last Jedi has come and gone. I saw it a few times this past week, and I'm finally ready to talk about it in full spoiler detail. That is a spoiler warning to anyone who has not seen Star Wars The Last Jedi yet. If you haven't seen it, I have a spoiler-free review that is on my channel. You guys should check that shit out. I've been waiting to spoil the shit out of this movie ever since I saw it last Thursday night. So without further ado, showtime. Start off by talking about Luke Skywalker, because I feel like Luke Skywalker is like the most divisive part of this movie. The movie did not unite the fans, it did not bring them together. This movie split the fans right down the middle. I mean, half of the fans in the world love this movie, half of the fans in the world hate this movie to tears. I'm on the side that love it, but I do kind of understand some of the hate, but most of that hate, as far as I can see, is centered around Luke Skywalker. Yeah, because this movie took Luke Skywalker in some directions that I wasn't expecting, and it took Luke Skywalker in some directions that I think a lot of fans are unhappy with. Catch up to Luke Skywalker when we finally get to the scene where Rey hands him the lightsaber. Luke just kind of nonchalantly throws it over his shoulder. Fans are bitching about that. And as we get deeper into the story, we find out that Luke is a jaded, broken, grizzled man. This is not the same hero who saved the rebellion from the Emperor and Darth Vader. This is not the same hero that we remember 30 years ago. Shit has changed. And because shit has changed, Luke has changed along with it. He's become very jaded and very cynical about the Jedi and about their way of life, and about how maybe the Jedi weren't these perfect things that we built them up to be. Rey is like following him around the island for like half an hour trying to get this dude to at least help her, or maybe even train her to teach her how to control the Force. The dude is just not listening to her. Dude just doesn't want to do it. He's like, no, the Jedi, they're wrong. There was a nice scene where he goes to the Millennium Falcon, he sits down, he's thinking about Han, and then R2 turns on. R2 turns on and he's trying to convince Luke to come back to the fight, and Luke is just like, no, I can't come back. You can't convince me. And then R2 cheats by showing the little hologram message from all those years ago of Leia trying to convince Obi-Wan Kenobi to help her. As a Star Wars fanboy who appreciates good fan service when I see it, that was a nice moment, a nice touch. Then we get down into the darker aspects of Luke's character arc and the real reason why he's decided to leave everything behind and walk away after all these years. I think part of this is because Luke got caught up in the myth of being Luke Skywalker. He got caught up in being the legend. So he took Ben Solo, Han and Leia's son, under his wing to try to teach him the ways of the Force, took a bunch of other students, and he thought he had it made. And he started sensing some darkness in him, and then he just, one night he kind of put his hand over him while he was sleeping, and whatever he saw fucked him up mentally. Like, it just ruined Luke's life, whatever he saw inside of Kylo. Or I guess he was still Ben Solo at that time, he wasn't Kylo, but what Luke decided to do next definitely turned him into Kylo. Luke, on pure instinct, lights his lightsaber like he's gonna take out his own nephew, but then he stops and he's like, nah, I can't do that. I'm just, no, this is stupid. But before he can do anything else, Kylo wakes up and sees him, and then that's pretty much all she wrote. That pushes him over the edge to the dark side. A lot of fans are bitching about this. A lot of fans are saying Luke would never actively try to kill his nephew like that. Luke would never, after everything he's been through, after all the other dark side users that he's faced, he would never just flip a switch and instantly think about killing his nephew like that. I see it as pretty simple. Luke Skywalker is not the same man that we saw 30 years ago. Like I said, 30 years could change a person. Luke Skywalker has become jaded and broken. He doesn't want anything to do with the fight ever again, and a lot of this is due to the fact that he failed. He let down his sister, he let down Han, he let down everybody with what happened with Kylo. I think that moment was just kind of a pure moment of instinct for the dude. I feel like I've seen Luke before in other movies act on instinct against his better judgment. When Vader was messing with his head in Empire Strikes Back and Yoda was telling him, hey, don't go to Cloud City, this is a trap, this is not going to turn out good for you, and Luke is just like, yeah, screw you, old short green midget, I'm gonna go save my friends. Well, in Return of the Jedi, Darth Sidious is talking shit to Luke's face, he's begging him to hit him, and then Luke is like, yeah, okay, give me the lightsaber, I'm gonna strike you down, and he tries to kill the Emperor. Luke is even the guy who, after trying not to fight his father, he gets into a fight with Vader, and then Vader starts taunting him too, and then Luke, out of pure anger, almost kills his father. The point is that I've seen Luke act spontaneously out of instinct before, and I think that this was just a moment of pure instinct, where he's just kind of like, holy shit, I'm the legend, I should be able to handle this, and then he strikes the lightsaber. But keep in mind, he didn't actually try to kill his nephew, he just thought about it for a second, pure instinct, and then realized that it was a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake, and he was about to do something really shameful, and his mistake ultimately pushed Kylo the rest of the way over the edge to become a member of the dark side, or, you know, join up with Snoke, who I guess was fuddling around in his brain a few weeks before that. I can totally get why some Star Wars fans are upset. My only real gripe with this character arc is I feel like there should have been a scene where Luke did reach out to Han and Leia. Yeah, that's their son, that's his nephew. I feel like he should reach out to them and be like, hey, so, Your kid's fucked. How you want to handle this? We don't really get a scene like that. Now, granted, he could have reached out to them and I just don't know about it, but I can't use information that wasn't in the movie to try to justify something that I think should have been in the movie. Speaking of Snoke, that's the other thing people are pretty bummed out about with this Star Wars movie, is that we don't really find out that much about, you know, Emperor Snoke. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call him Emperor Snoke. I mean, he's Supreme Leader Snoke, but let's be honest, he's really just another emperor. It's part of the reason why I'm actually okay with Snoke. Like, the first time I saw the movie and Snoke died, like, Kylo Ren kills him during that scene right before they fight the Pistorian guards. At first I was kind of like, why? Why kill him? Why build him up like he's this big mystery and then just waste the dude? It seems like a big waste of time. And I stepped back and I separated my expectations from it and I thought about it and I was like, no, okay, this kind of makes sense. I'll be honest, I've never really felt that much invested in the character of Snoke. I've never really cared that much for him, and so I wasn't really invested in him when his death hit. Most importantly, I didn't spend a whole lot of time speculating about who Snoke was and where he came from. I didn't really care, mostly because he just felt like a 99-cent knockoff version of Darth Sidious. That's what he really is in these first two movies for me. He's like Darth Sidious, except with better robes and way better security. So when he died, I was like, holy shit, that's great, because that means that this is all building for Kylo. It's total sense for Kylo to now officially become the dark side badass of the universe, for him to be the supreme leader. This is all in the service of building Kylo's arc. Kylo is very conflicted in these movies, and he shows a very wide range of emotions, both on the light side and the dark side, and you could tell that killing his father had the opposite effect on him. Snoke even says to him at one point, he's like, yeah, the act of killing your father split your soul to the bone. So I think it's great that this series is putting the spotlight all on Kylo. They're putting it all on his shoulders now, and we don't have to deal with another movie of some old ugly fuck just lording over his shoulder like, yeah, dark side, son, dark side, yeah. Not to mention, some of the dialogue during Snoke's death scene in this throne room was cheesy as fuck and a little bit too on the nose. He was basically spelling out what was gonna happen. Like, he had Rey, he was controlling her with the Force, and Kylo was supposed to stab his lightsaber through her, but at the same time, Kylo, you know, he's doing his thing with the Force, and he's turning the lightsaber next to Snoke sideways so that when he turns it on, it'll pierce through Snoke. The entire time, it might as well have been like Snoke is looking at the audience and like, yes, yes, I cannot be betrayed. I cannot be beaten. I see his mind. I see his intent. I can tell that he's going to turn the lightsaber sideways and kill me. And I'm just saying all of this for the audience to understand, because I need to spoon feed to them what the fuck is going on. It's like, yeah, dude, I get it. I know what you're doing. It's just, shut the hell up, please. Then we get into some of my fits, some of my fan nitpicks, some of the stuff that I wasn't able to talk about in my spoiler-free review. One of them, of course, is the Leia scene in space. Leia gets blown out of the big cruiser thing, and then she's just floating there in space, and she looks like she's freezing, but somehow she's able to use the Force, and then it projects like this little invisible Force air shield around her, and she's able to fly back to the... Well, she doesn't fly, she just kind of pulls herself back to the ship with the Force, I guess? I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw this scene, I was cringing. I was like, oh, this is weird. What? Oh, what? I stepped back and I thought about it, and I was like, oh, well, it's kind of cool to see Leia use the Force for the first time. I mean, we've seen her be in tune with the Force, we've seen her sense people, but we've never actually seen her use the Force physically to help her out of a situation, and there's no worse situation than almost coming that close to dying. I definitely would have called bullshit if she had pulled herself back to the ship with the Force, and then she just got up and was like, all right. Woo, that was a close one. All right, what's the next step? What are you guys looking at me for? I would have called bullshit for that. Luckily, they did put her in a coma for like half the movie, so that was fine. Look a little bit ridiculous? Yeah, sure, it looks a little bit ridiculous, but I'm okay with it. And look on the bright side. We have so many Leia Poppins memes and jokes that are going to be coming our way for the next 2 years. Oh yeah, can't wait. One thing I mentioned in my spoiler-free review was also about Poe and about his character arc in this movie. You see, Poe is kind of a hothead, he's a hotshot. He likes shooting first and asking questions later. At the beginning of the movie, he leads a bombing squadron toward this dreadnought, and they destroy the dreadnought, but all the other bombing people that were involved in this mission, they die. They die horribly, and so he gets demoted by Leia. The big point of his arc in this movie is to teach him humility, to teach him patience, to teach him that sometimes you need to look at the big picture. So he starts butting heads with the woman, I think her name is Holder, who replaces Leia while Leia's in her coma, and he's like, what is the plan? What are we doing? And she's just like, screw you. Granted, I do think that on this part, you could make the argument that she should have been a little bit more, I don't know, open to communication with him. Like, she should have gone to him and been like, okay, here's the plan. I need you to keep it quiet for right now, but we're still working on it and blah, 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 blah. Granted, you could argue that Leia is the only one that Poe would trust in these situations, and the only reason he went along with it at the end is also because you know, it was too late for him to do anything about it. At the same time, I think that's a legitimate thing. You could say that maybe she should have communicated better. It could just be a timing issue, though. As soon as she becomes in command, he goes to her and he's like, okay, what's the plan? And she's like, I don't have to answer to you. Go to your post and follow my orders. Could be that at that moment in time, she didn't have a plan and they didn't know what they were going to do, and it wasn't until later that they actually developed the plan. Besides, right after that, Rose and Finn came to Poe and they gave him their plan of what they were going to do, so he was like, yeah, screw the holder, bitch. I'm gonna do it my way. Speaking of Finn and Rose, like I said in my spoiler-free review, this subplot just dragged the pacing of the entire movie down. I can definitely see what they were going for with this, and I can definitely see the appeal in, oh, well, you know, we gotta look out for the animals, and we gotta save the animals, we gotta preserve the animals, animal cruelty is bad, and then war profiteering is bad. Yeah, I'm kumbaya with the world, I get it, people. But at the same time, I wish there was a way they could have condensed and shortened this subplot so that it didn't feel like the movie hit a wall whenever they cut back to these people.
What the fuck was up with that kiss at the end of the movie? Oh my god, talk about forced romance. I thought Attack of the Clones was like 15 years ago or some shit. Jesus.
It introduced a character named DJ played by Benicio del Toro, and to be honest, Benicio del Toro's kind of pointless in this movie. He has a really cool speech impediment, and it's kind of funny for a while, but then he ends up betraying them, and they don't end up doing what they were supposed to be doing anyways, and the plan wasn't for them to do that anyways, so you could kind of say his character was kind of a waste. In fact, there are a few wasted characters in this movie, none bigger than Phasma. Phasma is like the biggest waste of oxygen, I think, in Star Wars since Jar Jar Binks. I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm being dead serious. I think Phasma is a complete waste of space, time, and oxygen. If you think about it, 2 movies, they built up Phasma to be this badass female villain, and all in all she really contributed was a 40-second fight scene with Finn and a joke about trash compactors. That's it. That's all Phasma contributed to the Star Wars universe. Another character that feels like a waste at this point is General Hux. I get it, the whole little rivalry he had with Kylo was kind of fun for a while, but now it just feels like he's annoying because he overacts compared to everybody else. I mean, seriously, how many times do we have to turn on a Star Wars movie and see General Hux just overacting the shit out of whatever scene he's in? I am a member of the First Order, and it is my job to tell you that I am working for the First Order, and you will kneel before the First Order, and I will continue to talk like this because I don't get pussy. Seriously, General Hux, I mean, Kylo's in charge now, so you can kind of die. The movie did have some very heavy themes about the past and the future, and about embracing the past, and whether or not that defines you, or destroying your past and eradicating it completely, because is that the only way you can become who you're meant to be? Between past and future, and whether or not you should embrace your past because that's who you are, or whether you should forget your past and it doesn't matter who you are. This is perfectly reflected in the duality between Kylo Ren and Rey, because I feel like that's where the series is at its best. Find out in this movie that Rey's parents were nobody, that she doesn't have a tie to this story. Kylo even tells her, like, you're nothing. You come from nothing. Your parents were nothing. They traded you for junkyard shit or drinks or something, and then they abandoned you. They threw you away like garbage. Personally, I stepped back from it and I was like, it's kind of disappointing that she wasn't connected to anybody we know, but at the same time, that would have been the predictable route. If there's one thing this movie is, it's not predictable. This movie does go for things that you wouldn't expect. I kind of like the idea that Rey comes from nothing, because it follows through with the big theme of hope in this movie. How many times did you hear the word spark in this movie? They say the word spark a whole lot of times. I think the point with that is that it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you are, it doesn't matter what other people see you are or what your past is. Hope can come from anywhere. Hope can come from anything. And that kind of connects to the Force in a spiritual way, which is how I connected with the Force in my first go-round with the original trilogy. Making Rey just a destined Force user to combat the rising dark side, I mean, that just makes sense for me thematically with the themes of hope and the whole past versus future thing.
Oh, and Kylo and Rey kicked so much ass in that throne scene. Seriously.
Ties into Luke's character arc again because he's trying to find redemption, and it's fitting that his first movie, Star Wars, was called A New Hope, because that's what he's trying to provide to the Resistance in this movie. He's trying to provide them with a new hope. There are some great parallel shots too. You see that shot from the first Star Wars movie, the one where he's staring out at the horizon and the sunset, and he's, searching for hope. And in this movie, his final act where he does the OP God mode Force astral projection shit. And he sits on a rock on his island and he's just looking out at the sunset. It's a very interesting parallel. Again, Luke provided hope. The Resistance was getting their asses kicked the entire movie. Luke gave them the spark. He allowed them to survive. He kept them going. You can see at the end with those other little kids, he inspired a whole new generation, or he could inspire a whole new generation. Luke sacrificing himself in one final act, one very OP-ass act, it allowed to give the rebellion a new breath of life. And I feel like hope, which again was the title of the original Star Wars movie and is the big central theme of this movie, is giving hope by sending our characters to very dark and unexpected places. I really like that message, and I really like the way it was carried out in the movie. Don't worry, guys, I'm pretty sure that Luke will be back in the next movie. Maybe we'll see him do Force lightning like Yoda. That was another thing that caught me by complete surprise. Yoda was in this movie. That's pretty awesome. Last Jedi definitely has its problems. It has its flaws. Finn and Rose and that whole thing, yeah, just no. I feel like that could have been condensed and been way shorter. I definitely think there are some little nitpicks that they could have done better. They could have handled some things better. They could have had an extra scene here, an extra scene there. Overall, I love this movie. It's very thought-provoking for a Star Wars movie. There are some very heavy themes that are woven throughout the narrative and the screenplay. Give me your ranking. Rank all the Star Wars movies in the entire saga, including Rogue One. Let me know what those are down in the comment section below. Like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.